It was a night when the rain hammered down relentlessly, drowning out almost every other sound, except for the occasional distant thunder rolling across the sky like a warning. I was alone in my small apartment, windows tightly shut, but still, feeling the chill that comes with a storm that seems to seep into your bones. The power had flickered off and on all evening, but then finally went out, leaving me with nothing but the dull glow of my phone screen and the thunder outside to keep me company. I was halfway through making a cup of tea when the doorbell rang, sharp and unexpected. No one had warned me of any visitors, especially with the storm, and I wasn't expecting anyone. Hesitant, I peeked through the peephole, but the storm's sheets of rain blurred the view. All I could make out was a figure, soaked to the bone, standing there as if drenched by more than just rain, something off in the way they moved, slow and deliberate, like a shadow. I didn't open the door. Instead, I ignored the bell as it rang again and again, each time more insistent, but the sound wasn't just outside. I started hearing strange noises inside the apartment too, faint. Footsteps above the rain's roar, soft breathing that didn't belong to me. I grabbed a flashlight and a kitchen knife, deciding to call the police if the knocking didn't stop. When I finally worked up the courage to look out the peephole again, the figure was gone. But the storm was relentless, and I swear I could still hear that slow, deliberate breathing echoing through the walls. Minutes later, as the power suddenly snapped back on, the doorbell rang one final time. I threw open the door, only to find a soaked coat left on the doorstep with no sign of the visitor anywhere. The coat was strange, old, tattered, and heavy with mud, and inside the pocket was a small, worn photograph of a child staring straight at me with empty eyes. I never called the police. Somehow I knew no one could help with what had come knocking on a night like that. For days afterward, I felt watched, like the storm hadn't passed, but had brought something in with it, something that still lingered in the corners of my apartment, waiting for the next rainy night to return. The basement in my childhood home was never a place I liked to spend much time in. Dim, musty, and filled with shadows that clung to every corner like something alive. But that night, when the storm hit, I had no choice. It started with the power flickering, the lights in the house dimming and brightening erratically before finally cutting out altogether, plunging the entire place into an unsettling darkness that felt heavier than the absence of light. Rain hammered on the roof, thunder booming so loud it shook the windows. I was alone. My parents had gone out for the evening, and I knew I had to fix the fuse box in the basement to get the lights back on. With only my phone's weak flashlight as company, I made my way to the basement door at the end of the hallway. The wooden stairs leading down groaned beneath my feet, each step echoing ominously in the silent house. As I reached the bottom, a cold draft hit me, carrying the smell of damp earth and decay. The basement was never truly dark, even on stormy nights. A single bare light bulb dangled from the ceiling, casting a weak yellow glow over the cracked concrete floor. But tonight, as I flipped the switch, the bulb was already glowing faintly, a soft, almost ghostly light that shouldn't have been there with the power out. I frowned, stepping closer, and that's when I saw it. A shadow. It wasn't cast by the bulb, but was a solid shape lurking just at the edge of the light, too dark and shapeless to be explained by flickering lightning or my mind playing tricks. My breath caught as the shadow seemed to pulse and shift, as if breathing or watching. I swallowed hard and tried to turn the bulb fully on, reaching for the switch with trembling fingers. But the bulb flickered and went out, plunging me into complete blackness except for the occasional flash of lightning from above ground. The silence was shattered by a scraping sound, heavy, slow, dragging something across the cold concrete floor. Frozen in place, I felt a creeping dread, the kind that seeps into your bones and makes your skin crawl. My heart pounded in my chest as I fumbled for the stairs and bolted up, slamming the basement door behind me and locking it tight. I called my parents, but their voices sounded distant and muffled through the storm. I never went back to the basement that night, or any night after. But sometimes when the rain falls heavy and the power goes out, I swear I see that faint, flickering basement light glowing on its own, and hear the scraping footsteps that should never be there. It was another stormy night, The kind where the rain pounds so hard it sounds like it's trying to break through the very walls of the house, and thunder crashes so close it shakes the ground beneath your feet. I was home alone for the weekend, my parents out of town and my phone battery running low. As the night deepened, I began to notice strange things, faint whispers, soft enough that I thought they might be the wind slipping through cracks, but persistent and clear enough to make my skin crawl. At first I told myself it was just my imagination, the eerie quiet of the storm filling in the silence with sounds my mind conjured up. But the whispers didn't stop. They grew more distinct, more urgent. They seemed to come from inside the walls themselves, voices overlapping in a language I couldn't understand, but that felt desperate, warning, and mournful all at once. I tried to shake off the fear, moving from room to room, checking doors and windows, but everywhere I went, the whispers followed me like a shadow. Never quite loud enough to catch words, just a steady murmur that raised goosebumps on my arms. At one point, I sat in the living room clutching a flashlight when the power flickered and died, plunging me into darkness as the whispers swelled into an overwhelming chorus of voices, all speaking at once, filling the room with a suffocating pressure. I covered my ears, but the sound was inside my head now, echoing relentlessly. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the voices stopped, leaving a deafening silence that was almost worse. When the power came back on minutes later, I was trembling, staring at the cracked plaster on the wall where, for a fleeting moment in the lightning flash, I saw a face, pale, hollow-eyed, pressed just beneath the surface, like a ghost trapped inside the house. I haven't been able to sleep through a storm since. The whispers never came back when anyone else was home, only when I was alone and the rain was hammering down, reminding me that something unseen still lingers in the walls, waiting to be heard.